the San Mateo Main Library in the Oak Room here in 55 West 3rd Avenue, San Mateo. And we're also putting this out to the world. And we will work very hard at being appropriate and having a good meeting. And I appreciate you all being here. So you see that you have a microphone or may need to share with someone. Make certain that you are speaking towards that. They are directional. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Ms. Sandkulla, we will ask you to do a roll call.
Certainly. Chair Hardy.
Present.
Vice Chair Ragsdale.
Present.
Chambers.
Here.
Dorr. Duncan. Pierce.
Present.
Schneider.
Present.
Vella.
Present.
Thank you. Zichterman. Thank you. And you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I will say that Director Vella is in Malta, I believe it was, and is much later than the rest of us time-wise. So we appreciate taking that time, especially when it's vacation for many realities. I also want to say thank you to the staff and for giving us a wonderful tour at Hetch Hetchy. Those of us who were able to go, and we had a marvelous time. I always joke about it being a $1 million view. It is spectacular, and I strongly encourage all directors to make certain they have gone on that. I will say it was my 3rd time. I knew I could get bumped and wouldn't get to go if there wasn't enough space, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself, learned something new every time. And we have another one of those October 15th and 16th. My understanding it is full at this time, but if you want to get on the wait list, it is worth it. And I want to thank all the staff that helped so much with that to make it a really positive experience. Thank you so much. All right. We will go on then to the consent calendar, approval of minutes from April 10th. Meeting. Do I have any discussion or do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Director Pierce, that's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It was, Director Schneider, thank you. And we're trying to be a little more formal, so thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any, and remember to be recognized for a second, you can just jump in, but if you want to speak, to remember to turn your name tag, that'll help me to do a good job. And is there any discussion on the motion? Oh, public, that's right, we need public comment. And also, Director Vila, we have to ask, is there anyone in the room with you? And is there anyone that would like to speak there?
There's no comments, and there are no public that would wish to speak.
Thank you so much. Would I see it here?
We don't have on.
Okay, we do not at this point. Okay, there's no one in the chambers that wants to speak on this motion. Then we will have a roll call vote, and it needs to be a roll call vote because we do have someone remote. Yes.
Sorry, that was Chair Hardy. Vice Chair Ragsdale.
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dorr. Duncan.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vella.
Yes.
Thank you. And Zichterman.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we will go on agenda item number 4 for public comment.
Chair Hardy?
Yes, please.
If I may, I think that when you have the mics close to each other, I think Nicole's and yours on, there's an echo.
Okay, I will make certain that when I'm not speaking, I will turn mine off. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad you are helping us out because we would not know that otherwise. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone, public comment? Anyone here in the chambers? Director Vila, is there anyone there that would like to make a public comment?
No, there isn't.
Thank you. I do not see anyone, so we will go on. Excellent. We are up to number 5, action item, contracting and funding to initiate the development of BAWSCA's long-term reliable water supply strategy, or Strategy 2050. And I believe that is Ms. Azora. Sorry, am I saying it right?
Yes, Ms. Ashoori.
Sorry. Thank you.
you.
Please.
Good afternoon, Board Policy Committee. BAWSCA has now completed the scope of work for the long-term reliable water supply strategy 2050. And today I'll be going over what the necessary next steps would be to both obtain and fund the technical and legal services to develop strategy 2050. This is shown on the current slide, but we will be discussing in further detail. The needs from each of your agencies. And we use that information to develop these 6 Strategy 2050 objectives to achieve that purpose shown on this slide. Now, these 6 objectives are in addition to BAWSCA's work to oversee the WSA, and the objectives really align with BAWSCA's overall goal of reliable supply of high-quality water at a fair price. Okay. Testing? Better? Okay. Thank you. After establishing the objectives, the purpose and objectives of Strategy 2050 then supported the identification of 7 key tasks for the scope of work, which is basically the foundation of the strategy work. The Strategy 2050 scope of work, which can be seen in the BPC memo, really includes these defined primary tasks and subtasks, which were shared with the BAWSCA WMR in March, with the BPC in April, and then with the board in May. And all of these tasks and subtasks within that scope of work tie directly back to the proposed purpose and objectives of Strategy 2050. And then additionally, we're looking into having workshops and stakeholder engagement throughout that scope of work in completing these 7 tasks. The next step is to initiate the development of Strategy 2050, and to do this, the board would need to authorize the CEO, GM, to contract for the necessary technical and legal support, and authorize BAWSCA to use the water management charge in order to fund it. Now, in order to facilitate an efficient transition from the scoping of Strategy 2050 to its development, the contract that BAWSCA first entered into for scoping of Strategy 2050, it opened the potential to use that same consultant for subsequent phases. Now, BAWSCA considered numerous factors in deciding to continue to work with EKI who had performed that scope of work. Now, some of these factors include the quality of scoping services performed by EKI, which was excellent. They were very much forward-thinking, and they have highly prepared and were familiar with that level of complex work. Now, the second one was whether the scoping services were completed on time and on budget, which they were. And then the third is the reasonableness of EKI's proposed key business terms for preparing Strategy 2050. This includes the schedule, the price, and key staff, which we have thought that was reasonable. Now, through looking at those factors, it's recommended that BAWSCA continues to contract with EKI for that technical service related to the development of Strategy 2050, and then work off of that immense work that they have already done in this past year. And their proposed contract would be for $2,267,000 and would cover the completion of all that 7 key tasks mentioned in the prior slide. The second consultant resources needed is for legal services. This is related to Strategy 2050, similar to what we had for the 2015 strategy. And Hanson Bridget has reviewed that scope of work that we have developed and have proposed a budget of $180,000. And that's for the level of review needed for each of the tasks and subtasks in Strategy 2050. BAWSCA is recommending a separate contract for this, for that legal services related to Strategy 2050, to really allow for that flexibility. You know, the work's going to take place in numerous fiscal years, 3 fiscal years, so having that level of flexibility would be beneficial. And being able to pay for it through that water management charge instead of the BAWSCA annual budget would also allow for that flexibility. Now, to fund both the technical and legal services needed to complete it, we're looking into using the water management charge through an authorization through the WSA. The water management charge was used successfully to fund the 2015 strategy, and at the time, the project for the 2050 strategy was close to $2.3 million. And we're proposing something similar, a funding method for Strategy 2050 to collect $2,447,000 over that 18 months. So that's roughly $136,000 a month. Now the charges would be allocated to agencies that would be in proportion to an agency's fiscal year 2000-2001 regional water supply purchases. And this is the same calculation and formula that was used for BAWSCA assessments, as was set by BAWSCA's enabling legislation of AB 2058, and the same one that funded the 2015 strategy. Now, SFPUC would collect those funds via a new line item, which would be called water management charge, added to each of the wholesale customers' bills, beginning in September of this year, and then collect that money and use on behalf of each of your agencies. And at the end of each of that fiscal year, a report would be provided to San Francisco to really show how much money was used and where it was used for. The use of the water management charge offers numerous benefits. It provides some flexibility in collecting those revenue and allocating those costs for Strategy 2050, as opposed to the assessment process, which funds the BAWSCA annual budget. It also represents a distinct project budget that's independent of BAWSCA's annual operating budget, and then it offers a revenue stream that is not constrained by a fiscal year. And then it also enables BAWSCA agencies to accommodate the cost of strategy as part of the cost of water from San Francisco and easily pass through those costs directly to the customers with that increased cost associated with the participation in this project. Now, looking at the timing for Strategy 2050 here, you see that we are currently done with the scoping part of it that we have done this prior year. And we're hoping to start that collection of the water management charge in September of this year, and then start that development in January of 2025. Again, we have that delay, that 6-month delay, mainly for 2 reasons. One is due to staffing time and making sure that we get the BAWSCA demand study further along, since there is a time constraint with that, and we want to get that completed so the agencies can use it for their urban water management plans. The second reason is to really be able to have enough funds, having that few months of collecting those funds before we start that work. And we also want to spend that time in the 6 months, between July and January of 2025 to provide a clearer schedule to you all on board participation and input throughout that 2-year schedule. You know, since we have received your input for the scope development, it has been really critical, and we want to continue that in the years to come for that development of Strategy 2050. So in order to move forward with the Strategy 2050 scope of work at this time, we are asking the Board Policy Committee to recommend the board to authorize the CEO, GM to 1, negotiate and execute a contract with EKI for the development of Strategy 2050 for a cost not to exceed $2,267,000. The second is to execute a new contract with Hans and Bridget to provide legal services to support the development of Strategy 2050 with a cost of $180,000. And that third is to enact the water management charge to fund the development of Strategy 2050 work up to a not to succeed amount of $2,447,000. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions of Director Zigerman?
Thank you. Great report, and I like all the work. Seems like a lot of cost, but these things done right do take a lot. 2 quick questions, though. I think you said it's with a cost not to exceed. So does that mean that the contract is being paid on a T&M not to exceed basis rather than? Okay, thank you. Second question is the basis of allocation to the agencies is based on 2000-2001 water usage. Why water usage from 20 years ago, not a more recent allocation?
Okay, I will answer that question, Director Zichterman. You're not the first to ask it. So the 2000-2001 purchases are the basis for BAWSCA's annual assessments to the member agencies. So the normal operating budget is collected in that proportion. That's set by your enabling legislation that was passed in 2002, and it did not allow for that to be changed in a normal course of fashion, right? It would require a legislative amendment to change that. So the recommendation is to charge this cost in that same proportion that you would charge any other planning study that has been that is done by BAWSCA through its annual operating budget, because there is no distinctive difference between the benefits received than any other work that's done on the annual operational basis. You're welcome.
Wonderful. Do I see any other questions? Oh, I apologize. Director Schneider.
So from Director Schneider, question. So if the fee starts in September, how long will it last?
18 months.
18 months. And I didn't get my briefing because we've been a little busy in the home country, and I'm sorry, SFPUC, I understand the need for this, but the city of Millbrae had some concerns over how SFPUC calculated the cost of water. This was about a year ago, and I don't know if that's been resolved. I've been asking, but we're counting ballots right now. So I think my residents have really hit, they've really hit the wall between how much more we can expect them to pay. So I support this, but what would be the percentage? I looked at the other chart that said we're 1 point something percentage. How would this break down city by city so that I know how much? And if it's something that we can kind of bury, we're facing 3 huge budget hits to my city. VLF, I think all of us in San Mateo County are going to get our vehicle license fee back, but we're hitting a loss of property tax and a loss of a fire assessment, which will hit us really hard, unless that passes any minute now, I hope. So what is the percentage?
Yeah, so in Table 1, it shows the breakdown per agency.
If you can tell her the
that,
page,
so
it's page number 25 in your packet.
Okay, I saw that one, and I should have known this.
And that gives a breakdown of all of those things you've asked
Basically $2,000 a month for Millbrae, then, if I'm reading that, dollars per month, in the dollars per month column. So
that
really
is correct.
Something we can absorb pretty easily. Okay,
And
thank you.
the impact is about 2 cents per CCF.
Thanks.
Things go up, but let's hope that the idea here is that this is to help us plan for many years down the road and give a real scope and understanding. And I like the idea of we're all putting some skin in the game and recognizing that we need to have a long-term plan for our water reality. And I appreciate that. Yes, please.
And I-
well,
I completely, Director Schneider, I completely understand that. I do think, though, and it's probably because some of us still wear our city hat in addition, our residents are getting so many increases. I realized I'm on a fixed income paying for medical bills right now, and I'm actually buying the cheaper brands because of that. So that whole inflationary impact is hitting there. So I think it would also help if BAWSCA and all of the other regional agencies really help local governments or local water districts explain how this is going to benefit them. If we have a really clear explanation of why this is needed on that and how it is all of us chipping in to get together on that, and whatever that messaging would be, my small staff, they don't have the skills or the time for that. So if this entity can do it, it'll help all of us.
I appreciate that, and we're all feeling that squeeze. I know that is. And I appreciate that this is putting some money into it now, doing the studies so that we do have a reliable water source. And I appreciate that we've kept the cost. What's wonderful is it's very close to the cost it was 10 years ago, which is amazing. Yes. Director Duncan, please.
I appreciate that comment, Director Duncan, and it'll be something we note for the future. I will say this is only the second time we've ever used the water management charge, so it doesn't occur fairly regularly, but very good point. Thanks.
Thank you. And understanding also that this is for 18 months, and then that's it. And to me, that's a much easier sell to work on this. Also, I appreciate on page 29 where it talks about one of the tasks, task number 4. This is something this body has asked for, expanding the grants tracking tool. And this will be part of this. This is going to help, especially some of our agencies that are much smaller. So I appreciate that. Director Duncan. Okay, I wanted to make certain. Were there any other comments? Yes, Director Pierce, please.
I think one of the things that's also really helpful for us to remember is that our water management reps have really had input in this, so that all of the tasks that are going to be undertaken will be things that will benefit our agencies and benefit our water customers. So that even though it is an additional charge, it's a limited time period, it will set the work plan for the next 10 to 15 years, and it will have a long-term benefit. So it's an investment in the future for all of our residents and water customers.
Thank you. I would lead a lot of you to page 22, and I specifically called this out in consideration of the inputs. The purpose of Strategy 2050 is called out very clear: to identify the water supply and demand management needs and opportunities for the BAWSCA region and establish a framework to collectively support water reliability and resilience. And I thought that was very clear that this is what we want to do, and why this would be something we want to support and collect a small amount of finances from us all collectively to help see that we have water down the road. Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Do I have a motion? Oh, that's right. Public comment. Oh, Director Vila?
No, and no public.
Okay, good. I get reminded to ask you. I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you. We have not forgotten you, although you're on vacation and we're not. So we appreciate that. Do I have a motion? Yeah, please. Oh, before I ask for motion. Okay. Not a problem. We'll ask for any public comment on this or any questions for those in the chamber. We do not see any. Then is there a motion? Director Pierce?
I'd be happy to make the motion as stated on the slide to negotiate and execute the contract with EKI, to execute a new contract with Hanson Bridges, and to enact the water management charge. All of those as specified.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, as read so aptly by Dr.
Director Searman, I hope I'm saying that correct. Do I have any other comments on the motion? If not, Director Vila, any comments on the motion?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we will call for a roll call vote.
Chair Hardy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ragsdale?
Yes.
Chambers?
Yes.
Dorr? Duncan?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Vela?
Yes.
Thank you. And Zichterman?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. As chair, I do really appreciate this. It's a hard ask, but it is an important ask. And so I appreciate the support of that, and that recommendation will go to the entire board of directors at our next meeting in July. Okay, we'll go on to 6, reports and discussions. This is from Director Chambers, and he has a report for us on the CEO General Manager Performance Evaluation Process.
It's coming up that time of year again. I'm sure the speaker works, and I appreciate Ms. Bella's. Okay, I'll try. Down, I think. Okay. In July, we're going to be starting the CEO 2023-24 evaluation process. It's going to essentially be the same as last year. Shortly after our meeting on July 18th, we will send out an email that has Nicole's self-evaluation and a link to the Google form on, the Google form on which you'll submit your evaluation. Some of that is going to be, exceeds, highly exceeds, doesn't exceed, or doesn't meet standards. A section on that, and then there'll also be a section on free response where you can just write in some text. Those will be due on August 7th as currently planned. I will consolidate those, and prior to the September meeting, I will forward to everybody a summation of all of the evaluations that I've received, which hopefully are going to be all of them, and we will discuss the evaluation in closed session. If we do want to have a salary adjustment, any compensation issues will have to be covered in open session, and we will decide at that meeting what we're going to do. I will encourage, if you're a new member, we don't have too many new members like we did last year. Feel free to contact your predecessor. Also, there are some options of no responses, and you can use that as well. So that's basically what the plan is. Again, we will forward those forms to you, or at least a link to those forms, after the July meeting, and we'll discuss the summation in the September meeting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director Chambers. Director Pierce, you have a question about that? Oh, okay. I did have a quick question. This would be more for the public. I'm guessing they would ask this. What's our plan if you do not hear from one of our directors? Are we going to follow up, or
I will do some following
down? I don't know.
as we approach our August 7th, I will do some follow-up.
Okay.
A few reminders for those that we haven't received responses from.
So strongly encouraging those directors that receive that to
And if you're
do it in a timely manner.
in a timely manner, and if you don't feel qualified, say, I don't feel qualified.
Okay.
There is the option, not observed, or, I don't know. Check that and submit that rather than just submitting nothing. Nicole has spent a lot of effort trying to get us to do what we need to do, and for high quality water supply, reliable. At least we can do is fill out a Google form and submit it electronically so that she can get an evaluation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that will be also talked about in our next meeting, and will come out right after
July.
that. So this is our heads up. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We'll move right along to comments. That's right. Yeah. Are there any comments from the members over this report? Director Vila, is there any comments?
No comments, no public. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comments? I have to remember to ask for that. Thank you. And I do not see any, so we will move on. 6B, board member compensation and expense reimbursement. And that would be Ms. Schutte.
Yes, good afternoon. We have 4 slides on this topic, and it is for discussion purposes only to help frame the issue to be brought to the July board meeting. So we have in the agenda packet a cover staff report that includes 2 previous staff reports from last year around the same time, where this topic was raised and discussed at that time. And at that time, the board did not move forward with a change, but there's been a renewed request with some other differences, and so we wanted to cover this today. So, as you may recall, the enabling legislation sets the compensation at $100 per day of service for up to 4 days of service per month, but this can be increased according to the water code. And so the increase limits are up on the slide, 5% for each year, and a maximum of 10 days of service. And that the original compensation ordinance was adopted in the summer of 2004. And so doing the math, the conservative way, there is a debate about how to do the math, but the conservative math allows if we did an increase this summer, effective in September, up to $200 per day of service. Next slide, please. Based on the analysis that is a year old now, we BAWSCA staff did a survey of how we compared to our member agencies and other comparator districts. This is in the memo, but it's also on the slide for your information. And as you can see, there's differences based on the number of days per month that's allowed, which can increase the total compensation or the compensation per meeting itself. Thank you. So, as a reminder, we have a board reimbursement policy. Sometimes folks, since BAWSCA does not have a lot of board meetings, they don't remember this, but board members can be reimbursed for any necessary expenses incurred in doing duties at the request of the board. And we, this policy, which has been redistributed in your packets, does outline many activities that are approved for reimbursement, like going to Valley Water District meetings or other kinds of related meetings that are related to your BAWSCA board membership. So we can, of course, also change the reimbursement policy as well as the board compensation. Next slide, and I think this is the last slide. So, so the request that came in was to increase compensation from $100 to $200 a meeting. And a year ago, there was a decision not to move ahead, but this has been renewed. On the slide, it also states that that financial increase in the operating budget would be $21,000. So we would fund that from the general reserve for next year because it has not been built into the budget. And since this is a topic of interest for some individuals, there was a suggestion to add a review every 5 years. People can talk about if they want 3 years or 10 years. You know, that was one suggestion. And the desire is to have this at the July meeting for further discussion by the board. There was also in your at your spot there is a comment from a BAWSCA board member, not a BPC member, but he also included information, it's in the record, of the benefits that are offered by certain other agencies in the area, in addition to simple board compensation. So that's all at your spot and in the record of today's meeting. So I can turn it over to the chair to take comments.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the work that staff has done on this. I know it is an uncomfortable conversation for all of us. And there is a comparison. Director Pierce, I think you did a little bit of research on that. Would you like to share that with the other board members?
Sure. And it was, I was really interested in the difference in the responsibilities. One of the notes that we received from a board member indicated some of the agencies also provide group benefits, and I don't believe that that would be appropriate for BAWSCA to do. Some of them, I think it's more like insurance and things like that. And I did some research about the other agencies and the scope and the responsibility of the board members versus the scope and responsibility of BAWSCA board members. And there's a world of difference between them. And so I think for the level of work and the expectation of our oversight, that we should definitely not consider additional benefits, insurance, or any of those other kinds of things. More of the other agencies really have much more scope in terms of oversight and setting direction, whereas BAWSCA's policy oversight is at a much higher level. And most of the work in terms of maintaining and managing things is really done by the staff, so that the level of involvement that the BAWSCA board members do is much different.
Thank you so much. I had her report on that because I appreciated she went out on her own and did some of that research. Are there any questions or comments? Director Schneider, please.
Thank you. In terms of the other benefits, I know that some of the cities north of me, their elected officials don't get mileage reimbursement, don't get meals reimbursements, don't get any time they represent themselves for reimbursement on that. If a board member from a community like that needed to get mileage reimbursement, it sounds so funny because for us in North County, the meetings in Burlingame are lovely. But let's say it's somebody from the East Bay that has to either take BART, that's probably going to be $10, $15, blah, blah, blah. But if they didn't get reimbursed, is that within our reimbursement process for those entities?
I will let our CEO, Ms. Sandkulla, answer that.
Yeah, I have a clarification of the question. Do you mean a board member?
A board member, right.
Oh, that cost, any board member may submit for reimbursement for costs for attending the meeting.
Even mileage reimbursement or transportation reimbursement. Okay, okay. Because that was when I realized that the city right next door to me, they have to pay for everything. And for us in North County, most meetings are in Redwood City, so it's an issue, especially if you're on a fixed income. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director Schneider. And I will say, I was joking, I looked around, I probably come the furthest and often will ride Caltrain. and I'm still here. You can't get rid of me that easily. So I appreciate you being aware of that, and we want to be appropriate with our finances, but appropriate with our compensation as well. So what we are looking for today is just more of it will not be an official recommendation, but I would love for each person to go around in here on the policy board and just give a basic, how do you feel like about this, and would you support something like a 3 or a 5 year or an 8 year or 10 year? I'd love to put this on a schedule so it doesn't just come up at random, that we do revisit this in an appropriate manner and see if we need to look at our compensation, and so that it is more on the schedule and it's something staff can plan on to look at. So I would start with Director Schneider. Do you have any strong feelings about that?
I would say, first of all, this is the only regional commission or anything that I serve on that I get paid for. So to me, it's like, wow. But all of us are going through the fact that it takes a lot of time, even the time, especially those of us who wear multiple hats, and we're seeing fewer people run for elections. We're seeing definitely diversity. It means you have to have a pretty good income to run for office, and all that time away from your family. So I think, whereas I am happy, I am also open, but I understand what Director Pierce says, that we don't do as much as some of the other agencies on that, and that's a good point. But I think I would go for a 3-year. Let's come back and look at it. This has been a couple of heavy inflation years, and who knows what kind of the next group of leaders that will be coming through. They may be more middle or low income, and I want to be cognizant of that.
Thank you so much, Director Schneider. Director Duncan, do you have any thoughts and would like to weigh in on this?
Yes, so I'm in a unique situation where I think I'm the only director that doesn't get paid because I represent a for-profit company. So I don't have any skin in this game, right? So, and I understand the awkwardness of voting yourself a raise, but when I look at it, these fees were established in 2002 at $100. If you do the inflation since 2002, it'd be about $175 a meeting. I would fully support that. I think matching inflation is a good role, and I think 4 or 5 year review on that makes a lot of sense to me, and I would support that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Director Sigurdman.
Thank you. Mixed feelings about this. I'm not interested in getting compensated more, but at the same time, I see the sense of recognizing the value of being on this board. It is hours of work a month. It's not trivial, not just getting to the meetings, but I mean doing the homework. So I think it's warranted to do the adjustment. I would prefer to do it when it's appropriate now rather than waiting another 3 years. I most of all, though, don't want to see anyone not participate in a board role because it's one more thing they have to do and it's not going to put bread on the table. So I would want to make sure we pay something so we don't preclude anyone who is qualified in all ways except financial from being on a board like this. So for that reason alone, I'd vote for increasing this. I think 175 or 200 makes total sense. But for sure, let's revisit every 3 years. But I wouldn't mind seeing this go forward now for an adjustment, just for that reason. And one more thing, would there be a mechanism for deciding to not take the stipend or put it back into the coffers rather than taking it? Yeah, it could all be done confidentially, but something so that at least those who really do need it get it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Director Chambers, would you like to weigh in?
I don't think you're ever going to pay enough to compensate us for our time. So I don't think the difference between 100 or 200 is going to make a heck of a lot of difference. I know that my Westboro Water District pays $100, and they've been doing that for a long time. I think that's fair, and I would hate you know, for this board to pay more than what my home district is paying. I also, vaguely, several years ago, I think somebody in our Westboro board mentioned about benefits, and I thought that we weren't authorized to pay benefits. Although we do have life insurance in the Westboro Water District Board, but there's obviously no health care. We don't do enough for health care. We should get that through our normal day-to-day job. So, you know, personally, I'm for keeping it at $100, but I can see the need for a periodic review, 3 years, 5 years, maybe compromise in 4 years, because most of our election terms are for 4 years. So my idea would be a 4-year review, and let whatever the board, whatever all of the directors decide for compensation, you know, at our July meeting, assuming this gets put on the agenda for July, whatever the board decides is fine. But I don't think it's necessary, given what Westboro is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you weighing in. Director Pierce.
I could stay at 100 or go to 200 if that would be of benefit to other board members. It might help compensate with some of the transportation. But I think that, and I think the idea of reviewing every 3 or 4 years is a really good idea, because sometimes you really do get so out of date. And this really isn't supposed to be compensation for your hours put in. It was established just to encourage the agencies really to appoint people, and it's from our own selected pools. But I'm glad that we're at least looking at them, and I hope we can put it to rest.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair Ragsdale, please.
Similar thoughts. So since this hasn't been budgeted for, I would recommend to the full board, if they decide to increase from 100 to something more than 100, to vote it in now, but have it start to be accounted for in the next budget, because, you know, already we made that decision to do the 9% to the 10%, and, you know, with where the reserve is, I would feel more comfortable, even though it's not a lot of money, to have it when we have budgeted for it. I love the idea of scheduling to discuss this on a regular basis, no matter what the decision is, because, like you said, it's an awkward thing to bring up, except for Director Duncan. Or we could just say that Director Duncan brings it up every so often. So I think that's good, and the 4 years does make sense. I know with council compensation, when they voted in, it doesn't take effect till after the next election, which makes sense. And lastly, with regard to reimbursement, I wouldn't mind revisiting that, and also maybe just ensuring. So I think I got here in 3 minutes today, and when we go to Burlingame Rec, it's probably 5. So. But I think for people that are paying for public transportation or using their cars, that they should be encouraged to seek reimbursement for that. I don't know if they are seeking it or not. And also in terms of diversity on for all boards, really, if we would at some point consider maybe a child care reimbursement if someone has to get a babysitter just to come to this meeting. That seems like something we might consider adding. That's all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all weighing in. Director Schneider, did you have another? And I'm going to have Director Fila, but.
Thank you. Director Martin Ragsdale kind of brought up what I was thinking. When I was sworn into mayor a year and a half ago, my mom had just been released from the hospital. I'm a caretaker. It cost me $375 for a caretaker to come in for that time frame, and okay, the little after party that you have on that. I'm looking at all of our age groups. We could still have kids, we could have grandkids, we could have parents. That's a big hit on that, so I appreciate what Director Martin Ragsdale said on that. And I think that's a consideration. I think that's one of the reasons why we don't have more younger people running for office. It can be very expensive for them to miss all these, to be at all these meetings.
Thank you. Director Vila, would you like to weigh in, please?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you. I already, shared some of my views on this, but we all do remember that a few years ago, $100, we used to go and my wife and I used to have dinner, but we cannot do it anymore. So we're not talking about a lot of money. I'm sure that most of us will do this for $0. But if anybody is coming here to get $100, I think they should probably think it hard because it's not worth the money. So I don't think anybody is doing it for the money. However, having said that, like was said earlier by another director, the $100 was set like over 22 years ago. It's just like, seriously, I mean, things have changed so much since then. And even if a token was good 22 years ago, that token is not good anymore 22 years later. And if we were to look at any type of stipend or token for participating, if a member of this BAWSCA board is involved in other committees, like a board policy committee, besides the board itself, or another committee, I mean, it's not $100 per meeting that they're getting. It's going to be a lot less than that if you calculate it. And the other thing is that if somebody were to start charging for mileage or other expenses while they're doing their job, what scares me is the administrative cost to actually calculate that and pay that, which is going to cost us more in staff time. Whereas if you put a $200, that goes in automatically, and it's not a big deal. That's it. It's done every month, and there's hardly any staff time incurred to that. The reimbursement will cost staff time, which costs us a lot of money. So with that, I will be very, very interested. All the other directors, what they said, it's very well appreciated, and most of them, almost all of them were to the point. I'll be interested to find out when we go to the larger board what they say. And like the chair said, this is not an action item today, but I think that she has a pretty good picture of where things are going. So that will be my part of the easel.
Thank you so much, Director Vila. Are there any comments from anyone here in the chamber? I don't hear any. I will just say. that was made clear. Got it. I will just say, from my point of view, I always joke that my time is so valuable, that's why I give it away. And I feel very strongly about that. And as I mentioned, I probably come the furthest, but I also have the ability to do so. And I appreciate Director Vila's comment about raising the compensation would be a much easier lift than trying to do specific reimbursements as well. But we do have the reimbursements in there for travel, recognizing that. I hope staff has heard enough, and we will move on, because this is we're just weighing in on this. We appreciate the time staff put into this based on one of our director's concerns. 6C. Oops, have I not done something? Oh, I apologize. I thought I did. That's why she did. All right. Do we have any other public comment? I do not see any, so now we will move on. I'm glad that I have two very good people next to me on either side, bookending, making certain I behave. 6C is an update on the negotiation of the new Tier 2 Drought Allocation Plan, and that is Ms. McPherson.
Good afternoon.
afternoon, Board Policy Committee no, still not yet. This better? Oh, all right. Wow, you hear me breathing. All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, Board Policy Committee members. I am very excited to report that the lead negotiators have come to an agreement on all of the elements of the Tier 2 plan. Yes, very exciting. Part of them coming to that final agreement involved expanding what they were negotiating about. And so the final deal on the table includes an updated Tier 2 plan, as well as a WSA amendment to address minimum purchase requirement issues. I'm not going to get into the minimum purchase topic today. Nicole previewed it during the budget development process. We're going to focus on Tier 2. So BAWSCA is confident that the agencies will adopt this plan unanimously at their governing bodies, but given this additional minimum purchase element, we do expect that that could impact the schedule. So there's a potential that this board will need to act in November to extend the existing Tier 2 plan, at least until the updated plan is unanimously adopted. If that comes to pass when we get closer to November, we'll provide more updates. Right now, the BAWSCA team is meeting with the lead negotiators, their executive staff. Some agencies have advisory committees that they will meet with before bringing the plan to their governing bodies. So this presentation is going to give you a bit of a flavor of what those discussions are going to include. It provides sort of a background of why the Tier 2 plan required such an overhaul, large update. And to do that, I think it's helpful to step back and look at the existing plan and lessons learned from implementation in 2021. We'll also walk through the process that they went through to update the plan and how the updated plan achieves the intended objectives and the policy principles. So I'm not going to get into the details, the technical details of the existing plan, but I want to walk through the major elements, what conditions have changed since it was adopted, how these resulted in unintended outcomes, and what the lead negotiators intended to do with an updated Tier 2 plan to address these changed conditions and unintended outcomes. So the existing plan allocates water primarily based on a 1/3 weight on individual supply guarantee and a 2/3 weight on San Francisco purchases. There are minimum and maximum cutbacks to limit the range of potential cutbacks. There's an East Palo Alto adjustment, which I'll explain in a moment. And there are special rules for San Jose and Santa Clara. Again, without getting too technical, I do want to explain that all the water in this plan is allocated in step 1, and then it's shifted around between agencies to meet these other objectives. It's very confusing and hard to follow how an agency is allocated water through the process. So with the ISG, since this plan was adopted, the agencies are on average purchasing quite a bit less of ISG. So there's a weaker correlation between actual purchases in the pre-drought years and individual supply guarantee. The result of that is that the results of the Tier 2 plan are not very intuitive. So generally you would expect an agency with very high per capita water use would have more discretionary water use, more opportunities to conserve, and might have a higher cutback. But because of the heavy weight of ISG in this plan, that's not what we see in the results. So what the lead negotiators wanted to see was a plan that was more straightforward, not so much of the shuffling around of water, but also results that are more intuitive. So this East Palo Alto adjustment, when the plan was adopted, the East Palo Alto had the lowest per capita water use, and because of the high weight of ISG in the plan and East Palo Alto's ISG value at the time, they would have had a very high cutback. So what the agencies agreed to back then was to limit East Palo Alto's cutback by creating this sort of bucket of water, a bank of water that would be allocated to them.
Since the late aughts when this was adopted, or 2011, excuse me, East Palo Alto has received or purchased ISG, so that ratio is different for them, and they no longer need that full bucket of water to achieve that limited final cutback. The result of it is that part of that bucket of water was left unallocated. That's not ideal. So the agencies wanted to have a plan that allocates 100% of the available Tier 1 supply, regional water system supply, excuse me. The board adopted an amendment in 2021 to ensure that all of that water would be allocated, but the result of this was that some agencies' final cutbacks were below the agreed upon minimum cutback. And so what this group wanted to see, or the agencies wanted to see, was a updated plan that ensures that those limits are met. Since 2010-11, there are many more agencies that have similar water use profiles to East Palo Alto, very low per capita water use, and the agencies have considered whether it would be appropriate to have similar protections in for similarly situated agencies. And so the group decided that they wanted to have an updated plan that ensures sufficient supply for all wholesale customers, rather than carving out an exception for just one. Since 2011, the water sales contracts between San Francisco, San Jose, and Santa Clara the terms of those contracts have changed, and this group considered whether those special rules were really still appropriate for those agencies. The group did not specify an intended outcome or objective for this. It was just something that they wanted to be sure to consider through the negotiation process. So beginning in January of 2022, all of the wholesale customers got together and appointed individually a lead negotiator to represent the interests of their agency. So all agencies have been actively engaged through the entire process. We started with research of existing shortage allocation plans, and the goal was to understand how other agencies allocate water during drought. So perhaps we could expand our thinking about what a Tier 2 plan might look like beyond what the existing plan does. The next step was to develop policy principles, and the idea here was to have the group come together and agree on intended objectives of this regional plan before they started divvying up water. And then they went through the development process. So they identified steps or methodologies for allocating water that would achieve the policy principles. This has been a very iterative process, hence the 2.5-year timeline. So the agencies, they would look at different steps. They would, select some, toss others. They'd refine them, analyze results, go back to the beginning, maybe reconsider steps, look at new ones, refine, analyze results, until we came to this final plan. I'll say with 26 agencies, you are all very unique. And this process, part of it taking 2 years, was that it required some education about the other agencies in the area, and also building of trust in the room with each other. So I have the policy principles listed here that the agencies have agreed to. The first is to provide sufficient water for basic health and safety needs of customers. The next is to minimize economic and other adverse impacts of water shortages on customers and the BAWSCA region. The third is to provide predictability of drought allocations through consistent and predetermined rules of calculation, while allowing for flexibility to respond to unforeseen circumstances. And the last one is to recognize the benefits of and avoid disincentives for water use efficiency and the development of alternative water supplies. So, the question now is, does the updated plan achieve those objectives that I listed in the second slide, as well as the policy principles on the last slide? So we'll just go over a very high level the elements of the updated plan. So we maintain these minimum and maximum cutbacks. There are needs-based allocations at the very beginning of the process that allocate water based on demonstrated demand in the pre-drought years. And then we allocate the final remaining water based on that same 1/3 individual supply guarantee, 2/3 SFPC purchases. So the minimum and maximum ensure that all agencies contribute to meeting the overall reduction, but also limiting adverse impacts by capping potential final cutbacks. The needs-based steps ensure sufficient regional water system supply for all agencies. I think I would maybe rephrase this as to provide regional water system supply for base indoor use. The results are, because of this, are more intuitive and what you might expect. But this 1/3 ISG weighting is very important to several agencies because it provides this measure of predictability in the plan. The plan now allocates water in a sort of additive stepwise process, and what I mean by that is there's an allocation provided in step 1. Step 2 provides another allocation that's added to step 1, and then so on through the process. So it's much easier to follow how your agency has allocated water through the process. It's more straightforward and easy to follow, and then it also ensures that all of the regional water system supply is allocated. So next steps, BAWSCA, our legal team and the technical consultants are developing the adoption packet that will go to the lead negotiators for review. The terms of the minimum purchase amendment are currently being refined and going under further evaluation. And as we said before, the typical timeline for adoption by all 26 agencies is about 6 months. And as I previewed on the first slide, it's likely that the board will have to take action in November to extend the existing Tier 2 plan until the updated one is unanimously adopted. And that concludes my remarks today.
Thank you so much, Ms. McPherson. I will say, if you go to page 61 in your report and you see all of the meetings and all of the people who were there at those, that speaks volumes. And I truly I look at that and think, wow. And I appreciate you giving us a very good visual of where we were and where we're trying to get to, because this is getting 26 different agencies who have very different needs and concerns to all agree, and what can we all live with if we have to, is amazing, and it's been a heavy lift. So I truly appreciate what you've done. Director Sigerman.
Doctor of cat herding, Danielle McPherson, well done. This was a huge, long battle, and 26 cats, you got them together. Great job. And great presentation.
Yes.
I think having that summary of where we were, as good as it seemed at the time, and where we are now, is really succinct and clear progress. So thanks.
I would agree that progress is just amazing. Anyone else? Any comments? I mean, did such a good job. And Director Vila, any thoughts?
Just a huge congratulations. Very, very well done. And I don't know if anybody tried to chase a chicken, but I think the chicken was caught. Congratulations.
For those of us who grew up on farms, I know exactly what you mean, and that's a very good description of it. Yes.
I have a farm behind where I'm staying today.
Wonderful. Do we have any, Director Sigerman, you had another comment? Oh, okay. Director Schneider, please.
Thank you. What happens next?
Okay.
Oh, and historically, have water districts done a town hall with their residents to understand, or is it more simple than that? I'm playing my last year of being a fairly newbie.
I'll take a stab at that. So a couple things happen next. From the administrative side, Allison Schutte and the legal team have begun writing this up. on the Tier 2 piece, and she'll be reaching out to the city attorney in San Francisco to also write up the WSA amendment. And together we will put together, BAWSCA will put together a package of the language, so the amendment and the plan, along with a staff resolution, staff memos, PowerPoint presentations for councils in the adoption process. And then we're there to support the agencies through the adoption process. And generally, if a council has a water resources committee or something like that, it might go to the committee, and then it'll go to council. I don't recall anybody taking it to a town hall or anything. This falls generally under the stuff most public, you know, it is not a one-to-one connection to the public, right, for everyone. So it is more confusing, I think, than helpful, honestly. But we are going to be there. So my anticipation, at least for the time that I'm here, Danielle and I will be doing a road show for whoever would like us to be there, and then I'll definitely pass it off to her, and it'll be a great experience. It's a challenge, as you can imagine, to get 26 agencies to adopt something, but it's also some of the greatest work that we do. So.
Yes, please, Director Schneider.
Follow up. Our council takes August off. Are we looking at September? So I can make sure I get it on the agenda.
October.
October.
It's going to be October.
So you want to cut it really close to November then?
Huh? Go ahead.
I also appreciate you ensuring that I'll get on calendar and a prompt.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, everybody pretty much takes off August, so that was our anticipation, was to spend the summer to write it up, get everything nailed down. We will potentially meet with, say, the city managers and attorneys in September. We've often done that, and then that kind of kicks the process off for everybody to start getting on calendar. And then that's why it takes 6 months.
Director Pierce.
Yeah, and usually I think it's come through staff because of all the work that you, Nicole, and Allison have done, and then goes to water management rep and the lead negotiator, and then they usually have conversations with the city manager. And so the role that BAWSCA board members have really played is just sort of making sure it gets on the council agenda, and then supporting it and encouraging it and saying how it will benefit our city and things. So it's not a big discussion item. People look at it and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, good.
The hope is consent in all ways. Wonderful. Nicole, did you have another comment? Okay. And I will say, Ms. McPherson, thank you so much. And we're impressed. I know last year we were holding our breath and thinking, could we even come close or think of that November deadline? And the fact that we're close and may just have to extend a little bit is really good news. I'm personally thrilled. I've heard really good reports back, so thank you so much. I do not see any other comments. We will move on. Oh,
sorry, one more.
Yes, Director Secretary.
On the minimum purchase, what's the next step with that piece? And how can we help?
Thank you for offering to help. The next steps are, there's some further discussions that are going to happen at the Water Management Reps meeting in July. The group agreed that we were close enough that we did not need our all-day meeting, so that gives you a good indication of the level of comfort where we're at. It is a new issue, kind of a new resolution. So everyone agreed in the room they need to go back to their home agencies to engage with their management and make sure everybody's on board. And we have offered to have individual meetings with whomever needs help with that. So, so there's some legwork to do, but there is a commitment within the room for the solution in the room. So I may need some help as we move forward. And if I do, kind of to what Director Pierce said, typically what's really helpful is if the BAWSCA board member is the champion as it's making its way onto council calendar or agenda calendar. And then I have found that your boards will generally look to you to say, is this what I should do? And so that's a helpful thing too, is to be able to be in that comfortable role to say that. And if you're not, please let us know, and we will work with you to get you there.
Wonderful. Did you have a follow-up?
Well, thank you, Chair. So will the minimum purchase piece come back to the board policy committee?
No, none of them. We'll continue to update you as part of this package, because it's basically going to now move into a collective package. So if we meet in August, and I think that's a big question mark at this point, but when we give you the next update, and it could be even the July board meeting, we'll have more details on that minimum purchase proposal. It literally just is being hammered out this last week. So we'll add it to this topic, and it'll be, maybe we'll retitle it or something. But it is clearly a package together.
Excellent questions, and in my mind, really good news. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on. Number 7, CEO reports. Ms. Sandkulla, if you want to give us an update on FERC and the Bay Delta Plan updates.
Yes. I have 2 slides here. You may recognize them because they are the same that you saw last month. So, and it's not to diminish the effort, but just to say that everything is kind of where it was at, and there's a lot of work going on in the background by the state board staff and the different parties, but I wanted to remind you of the schedule because right now that's kind of the most important thing, at least for where we're at, right? So this is phase 2. So this is the Sacramento phase of the Bay Delta Plan updates, and they are going through their process. If you recall, they had a 3-day workshop, so they're in the process right now of considering what they heard in the workshop and figuring out what they want to do with that, and then anticipating, at least for right now, with the official schedule, releasing a specific draft in the fall. So that's where phase 2 is at. For phase 1, which impacts us on the Tuolumne River, I am hearing that there's some schedule delays overall, but nothing official. For the phase 1 update, so this is the implementation of the adopted action, the state board staff is still working on preparing the draft environmental impact report for what was adopted in 2018 and releasing a draft EIR in early 2025, but they're also at the same time, as you recall, considering a proposed agreement for the Tuolumne River, and they're performing that environmental and technical review. So we are engaged in discussions regularly with San Francisco and keeping an eye on this, but for right now, it's just a lot of work going on in the background. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Do I have any questions from any of the directors? I do not see any. Director Vila, do you have a question or comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any from the public? I do not see any. All right. Then we will move on to 7B. It's the CEO Recruitment Ad Hoc Committee report.
Okay.
And Director Chambers, please.
Thank you. As I indicated earlier, we have formed our ad hoc committee. At our initial meeting, we put together an RFP for recruiting headhunters for finding replacement for Ms. Sandkulla. That was out on the street, and we met 11 o'clock today to look at the 7 RFPs that were returns from potential headhunters. We've identified 3 of them that we would really like to interview. We will probably interview them within the next week and a half, and hopefully make a final. Our anticipation is to make a final selection of headhunter firm. Get together with them and try to have our announcement of the position on the street by mid to early July, and hopefully get some good candidates. By September 19th, we hope to be able to have a recommendation for a candidate to the full board, and our idea is to try to get this person on board by November so that he or she will have some turnover time with Nicole before Nicole enjoys retirement. So that's the report as it stands now.
Wonderful. I guess I know the answer to this, but just for everyone's understanding, could you tell us who's on the ad hoc committee and why you chose them?
Okay, Karen's on the ad hoc committee, Barbara and, okay, you're right, you're not. Okay, Barbara and Leslie are on the ad hoc committee, Randy Bro is on the ad hoc committee, I'm on the ad hoc committee. And Lewis, yeah, our friend in Malta is on the ad hoc committee.
And there was a specific reason you chose these people? I just want to make that
I wanted to get the leadership. I figured you were busy enough as it is teaching school. I've been through that.
That's right.
So I talked to Karen and said, I really don't want to put you on it because I think you're probably overwhelmed or will be overwhelmed if you were. So we have most of the leadership committee, and then both Barbara and Randy have been around long enough that remember pre-Nicole days.
I think they were around when Ms. Sandkulla was hired, and that was part of the thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Although I don't think Barbara was on the committee. She wasn't on the committee. Randy was on the committee that hired Nicole. So that's, I wanted to get experienced people because I'm not that experienced. So
I appreciate that, and I'd like anyone hearing this meeting to understand that that was the thinking process, and I felt that was very smart to go through and have a lot of different voices and a lot of experience. So thank you, and I appreciate you understanding my time constraints with.
Yes, I understand very well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. Any questions then on the report? All right. Thank you. And there's our $1 million view. All right. 7C, CEO General Manager's letter and Board Policy Committee calendar and the correspondence packet. Ms. Sandkulla?
No further presentation on those items.
I guess the fact that they exist is all we need.
Exactly.
All right. Allison? I'm sorry, Ms. Schutte, was there something you wanted to, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go to closed session. However, there is no further update for the board at this time, so I'm, unless a board member would like to go into closed session to discuss this in more detail, we can put this over until the July board meeting. You certainly can call for public comment in case somebody does want to share anything about closed session.
So I hope that the board members have seen on here what was slated. I joked that we know nothing more, now you are caught up. So to quote, close enough to one of my favorite movies, Princess Bride. So we'll only go into closed session if there are specific questions that cannot be asked in public. If not, we can forego the closed session. So I'm looking to Director Vila, do you feel the need to go into closed session?
No, we might as well go back to public without going to close.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would like to ask questions about that which was listed under closed session? I do not see any, so I will let you report out on the closed session that did not occur.
256, we did not go into closed session and are returning to the general agenda.
Probably the craziest report I've heard. All right. Do we have any comments by committee members? Anything that needs to be brought up? Vice Chair Ragsdale, please.
I just wanted to second your opening remarks about the Hetchy. And also, if you've been before, put yourself on again. You're on the wait list, but people have busy lives and people get sick, and it's good to have the full wait list. So the the trip is worthwhile. And one of my fellow council members, Marie Schwang, was able to go this time, and she got so much out of it. So I would encourage your fellow council members to sign up, get on the wait list. And October, I think it's the same time as Council of Cities down in Long Beach, or it's very close, so that might not work for people's schedules, but you never know. So it's good to get on the list, and it's very enjoyable and educational.
Thank you. I can't state. I'm going to try and drag some of my council members down the road, but I will concur with that and make the point that part of the tour is we get to go inside the dam, which is something that you would not be able to do as a public member, and it is a limited situation and quite amazing. And please, yes, it's 100 years old. It's pretty cool. Director Schneider, please, and then
Thank you. This is just to staff. We'll be moving over to a new city attorney, hopefully on board by August. I can't say yet who. So just be aware that come September, it'll be a new team. We thank our former ones. We're very transportation oriented. We just needed an attorney without conflicts with transportation agencies.
Thank you. The reality is change is inevitable, so I understand. Wow. That's amazing. Director Sigerman.
Sorry, just real quick. What are the dates of the October tour?
I wrote it down. It was the 15th and 16th, if I remember right.
Thank you.
Yes, please get on that wait list, and it doesn't hurt to beg. Please take me. I know, because I got to go again.
And just for clarity, BAWSCA board members are prioritized, so we do have that discussion. It is a very fluid and flexible list, as Lourdes knows. So I encourage you all to attend.
Wonderful. If we don't have any other comments, no comments by the public. Director Vila, did you have anything?
No, I'm good. If you need a motion to adjourn, I'll be happy to do it.
Okay. Yeah, he's sounding tired. We'll have to let him go.
Yes.
All right, then
It's almost midnight here.
Yes.
If I could make one comment, Chair Hardy, I would ask that you all keep the August date on hold for now. I know we often cancel the August BPC, but I've wanted to keep it on just to make sure that everything keeps moving well with Tier 2 and all that stuff. So we will surely be able to tell you by the July board meeting. But if you could keep it on your calendars for now, I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Yes, I was just going to say we will adjourn, but we do have an August 14th meeting at the Burlingame Community Center where we normally meet. If we need that, I know some places do go dark in August, but I've started school. I'll be here one way or another, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. And I use my water bottle to gavel us. I think it's appropriate, and thank you so much. And this meeting is adjourned.